And I want to just echo my colleague Leanne in thanking the show organizers for making all of this, a focus for the show for the first time, and not just having the vehicles here, but having people stand up and share their expertise. I also want to, from Aviation Week, I want to thank Juliet, who did a fantastic job of putting this together. And she's so calm, it is scary. So I'm just going to very quickly start by saying that it's great to see all this, and we've had some really, really positive messages so far this week from the industry, real communicating and enthusiasm that this whole new technology is bringing to aerospace. And the thing that I've been doing, I've been going around a lot of the suppliers to this industry, not just the startups, but the established aerospace companies, and trying to understand why, some of these really big tier one suppliers are getting involved in this industry. And the really, really interesting thing that I'm hearing is these technologies, the electric propulsion, the high volume, high rate airframe technologies are the same technologies that Airbus and Boeing need for their next single aisle airplane. So they are really getting in on the ground floor to get experience that they can apply across aviation. So this is going to generate a new market, but it's also going to change the wider aerospace industry, which is what makes it so interesting. But anyway, we are here to talk about, which I think is on everybody's mind here. We're in Paris. We're a year away, or almost a year away from the Olympics.
400 days.
It's really on everybody's mind. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where UAM, eVTOL moves out of the laboratory or the PowerPoint or the CGI, out of the flight test areas where only the engineers can see it, and into the real world. Now, it is a unique event. It's the Olympics. Sometimes these things can... I was in Atlanta for the Atlanta Olympics. There was actually a helicopter part to that. They were trying to do a sort of an air spray system, and it kind of just went very quiet after the Atlanta Olympics. So we need to see, or we need to know, or we need to make sure that what happens here a year from now has a lasting impact. So I wanted to go to Alban first, Head of Innovation and Corporate Venture, Group ADP, and just ask him, what do you expect to come out of the Paris Olympics? What's it going to do to this industry when we have this event next year?
So good morning, everyone. I start as a reminder on Group ADP. It's Paris Airport. So we are operating the biggest airports in Paris, CDG and Orly, and you probably came through those airports, but also Le Bourget Airport here. So welcome to Le Bourget Airport, and also 10 airfields in the Paris region, including Pontoise Airfield, which is staged on our booth over there, which is the first integrated vertiport for the industry since 2 years. So the Olympics, 400 days, I was saying. I think why we are doing this is because it's for us, ADP, it's an extension of the airport industry. It's a new kind of mobility, a new kind of aviation, electrical, carbon-free. And the idea is to work on the development and to accompany the development of those technologies on our airport and on our platforms. So we start with eVTOL because that's the first kind of technologies that will be present and real. And then we extend and we announced things yesterday on hydrogen, on hybrid technologies for conventional aircraft as well. We think on the advanced air mobility industry, the Olympics is going to be, I can say, the crash test, or or I can say as well the big showcase and the first real world operations. So I think it will add a lot to the industry as a first demonstration and first commercial operation of what advanced air mobility can bring to the transportation system in a big city like Paris, what advanced air mobility can be as an industry in the future. And I think for us, I mean, you are at the Paris Air Show, so you might, in a way, like aviation already, or at least you have some interest in aviation. But for the general public, the ones that are not here, the ones that see aviation as a polluting modes of transport, it's a way to make them understand that it's silent, it's very silent, you can integrate that into the city, and it can be a real complementary modes of transport for a city, again, like a big city like Paris.
So, Daryl, you're one of the real, you're actually a big voice in the whole idea about regional air mobility and everything like that. You've done a lot of work, published some great white papers that just explore the potential for this new type of mobility to transform regional economies, equity of accessibility. I mean, if you've really looked at all these things. So now we have Paris next year, then we have Rome at the end of 2024. We have Osaka in 2025. We have the Winter Olympics, Milan Cortina in 2026. And now the FAA is starting to talk up the importance of the LA Olympics in 2028. We could keep doing these things. We could keep demonstrating these things. And as somebody said earlier, it's an experimental demonstration here. It's an experimental commercial demonstration here. What is the value of these, and what do we need to do to make them valuable so they're not just a one-off that doesn't have, that just like drops in a pool of water and then
So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. This is absolutely brilliant. This is my first time to Paris for the air show, and it's absolutely exhausting. I'm broken. I'm going home after this because it's been an amazing few days. I would make an announcement that we've won a project, but I can't really say with who. But anyway, it's really good. To get to the question about these demonstration flights, and we can't underestimate the work that ADP and their partners have put into getting this right. However, it's only going to be about 5 aircraft, and there's only so much testing that you can do. The work is phenomenal. The systems that they have to put in place are incredibly complex to get that right, and we have to get it right. So every time that we do this, what I'm hoping comes out of Paris is that for the next event after that, some of that knowledge will be shared. And so I'm hoping that the operators themselves start to share that information so everybody starts to learn, because it's in everybody's best interest that we share those operational experiences. So within the airport world, we have something called ORAT, Operational Readiness and Testing. So you bring on a new airport terminal. What you want to do is stress test that system before you let passengers in there. And there are so many examples where ORAT has gone wrong. So Terminal 5 at Heathrow, when they first opened up the doors, the system fell over. And it's usually the baggage system that falls over because they don't stress test the system enough. They didn't train the employees where they need to go to check in. So it's that kind of thing. The learning experience that you're going to get here, we need to capture that and pass it on. I'm really hoping that kind of camaraderie happens between the operators. Now, in terms of the public acceptance side, that's going to be the biggest thing that will come out of this. More and more people are going to be exposed to what advanced air mobility can do. People have a much better understanding of the psychoacoustics of advanced air mobility. And just going out and listening to Volocopter, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's not necessarily the quietest one out there. There will be other ones that do better, but it was not an unpleasant sound. It's not like the helicopters and the constant thumbing, although I was one of the people out there watching the F-35 tear up the sky, which is just good fun. So this is where I'm hoping that we start to get onto some of these other projects like NEOM and another project that we've done in the Middle East, where they'll ramp up volumes quite quickly, volumes of operations, thousands of operations on a daily basis. So we just finished a project in the Middle East, 18 vertiports, one of them floating, 150 plus eVTOL aircraft needed to service the system, peak power requirements in excess of 130 megawatt hours in a day. And these are some of the learnings that we're going to get out of this show. How much power are they going to need to do it, and how quickly can they turn that over? And so this is where really the rubber hits the asphalt in terms of the operational learning. And this is the pathway that I think we have to take as an industry to make it viable.
So, Albert, have you actually built in bringing in other cities or bringing in other agencies or thing while you're running this to sort of start that sharing? Is there any of that built into this, or is it just going to be people watching looking in from the outside?
We are involved in the World Economic Forum initiative with other cities in the world, including ones that are expecting some large-scale events also in the future. So yes, that's been also a place to share some knowledge as we go toward this objective and as we achieve this objective next year. So yes, I'm sure it will benefit other cities. For us as Group ADP, I think it will also benefit the other airports and other cities of the network that we operate, 25 other airports in the world. So that's for sure something we'll take out of it.
When it comes to public acceptance, social acceptance, that's a very soft science. To an aeronautical engineer, it's a soft science. It's not to somebody who does that. Is there a kind of like a scientific approach to measuring that acceptance? I mean, when you come out of this project, will you have hard data on both on the passenger side and on the people on the ground as to what their reaction is?
So when we started this project 4 years ago, we put a very strict condition to have a concrete sandbox in Pontoise to work especially on public acceptance. It was really something we wanted to do before the large-scale event, before the large-scale operations in 2024, because we went through already this process of convincing people. So it's in Pontoise, 35 kilometers of Paris, small municipalities around, small communities that we engage with very early in the process. I went to the mayors of the city. I invite people on Pontoise airfield and explain to them we are going to build a vertiport here and put some eVTOL. You could see the eyes of those people opening, and they did not believe, of course, it will happen, and it happened. And during the whole testing campaign that we had during the last 2 years, we had thousands of visitors, thousands of witnesses of the volocopter flying, and other types of vehicles, and more than 80% of them said they were pleasantly surprised by the sound impact, and now we have real data on it to prove that it's completely integrated into the ambient noise atmosphere of a city like Paris or a major airport like CDG or Le Bourget. So yes, we are preparing some very large-scale surveys that we will conduct because we have to. At the end of the games, we'll have to do a kind of return on experience to publish to authority, to the administration, to the general public, to say this is what we learn, this is what people say about it. So I agree, I'm also an aerospace engineer, so it's not hard science, but it's surveys and very important for future operation, I think. Because, as I said, we already went through this process in Pontoise on a smaller scale, and we have to do it now, for instance, in the middle of Paris, close to Austerlitz train station, while we put a boat and land the eVTOL in the middle of Paris. So I will have very real-life feedback from people living there or people visiting Paris for the first time, or because it would be, of course, millions of visitors during the Olympics.
So Daryl, can you just give us an idea of how important this kind of data is? I mean, you're doing very detailed route by route, city pair by city pair analysis of the potential. Now, there's a lot of assumptions go into that. You're making huge, you have to, because at this stage, without, so my question is, when you're doing that, assumptions and uncertainties, where do you want data? Where do you want data that's going to narrow your ability to go to somebody and say there's a real market, real potential, real economic benefit in this?
Yeah. So the work that we do is bottom-up demand modeling based on mobile phone data. And then we use a traditional airline forecasting tool, which we've adopted to the model, and we brought in decision-making heuristics to really help people, or help us understand the decisions that people are making on their routes. So this is where we get very accurate information in terms of what the demand is back and forth, so investable information. And then we have a scheduling tool. And I think that's the important bit there, is we have this scheduling tool so that we can follow the daily profiles, we build a linked schedule. Then once we start getting the noise data from the OEMs, then we can start putting that into noise models, and then we can really start to understand what the noise footprint is going to be. Now, it's a horrible thing to say at an air show, but airports have been traditionally great liars when it comes to noise, because they hide behind DBA, DBB, LENQs. There's about 15,000 different metrics to measure noise, daytime, nighttime, lies, and statistics is what it is. But what I am happy to say is that trend has actually changed, and most airports, and I know ADP are definitely a part of them, they've changed the way that they engage with the public. They understand that you really need to have that honest relationship with them. So with the demand modeling that we're doing, what we're looking to do, and we're discussing this with some partners in doing a total simulated environment so that you can really understand what the noise footprint would be on an area. Now, the interesting thing is, and we do a lot on regional air mobility, and I do slightly disagree with the assessment of Beta. I think regional air mobility globally is going to be a bigger market than urban air mobility. Now, urban air mobility is going to be huge. There's going to be fortunes made and lost within urban air mobility, but regional air mobility is low-hanging fruit. The airports are there. There's more small airports which are closer to passengers' origins and destinations than large airports with great surface access, but everybody wins in that model. So this is where we think that in our approach and doing the simulation stuff, a lot of these smaller regional airports will be able to operate these electric aircraft and have a noise footprint that doesn't extend beyond the existing hydrocarbon market. It's even possible that at the large hub airports that these aircraft will be able to operate overnight. And we talk about the cargo market for advanced air mobility, and this is great what Beta is doing. They could be running cargo operations out of Heathrow all night long and not disturb anybody. You have displaced thresholds for landing. This is, again, part of the potential of the market and what electric propulsion systems possibly could give us.
So, did you want to...
Just to add, we did the measures, we did the simulation as well in Pontoise with 30 microphones that we put on the airfield. We had the volocopter flying at 50 meters, 75 meters, 100 meters, and we did the simulation on the integration and into the city. But at the end of the day, it's only a matter of perception. I mean, general public, they don't care about dB, as you were saying. They care about what they see, and this is what they're going to see in 2024.
Yeah. So psychoacoustics, that's it. We don't even know how to describe the sound of an eVTOL. We really need to develop that language.
Here's the thing. So when Uber Elevate, when Uber came up with the concept of urban air mobility, and they had this annual summit, and they brought in this incredible array of people, including psychoacoustic experts. And there's this concept of it's perceived noise, but not by the ear. It's perceived noise by the eye. They have found that people who see a helicopter think it's noisy, even though they physically can't hear it. 5
decibels. In London, Londoners perceive helicopters as 5 decibels louder than they actually are because there's no social benefit to them. The average person, they see a helicopter, it's some executive going off to do a meeting who's making €1 billion an hour or something ridiculous like that. In actual fact, what generates the most noise complaints for helicopter operations in London are emergency medical operations or police operations, because they tend to hover in area. A corporate helicopter they're going somewhere. They have to get somewhere. That's what they're paying for. So they get up, they go, and there's less complaints about that. So that's the weird, annoying thing about it.
Yeah. So Alban, what have you learned inside Group ADP doing this? What would you say were your biggest learnings, and how do you take that forward? You have all these airports in France and around the world. You now have this sort of catchment area or hinterland around those airports that could be impacted. I understand here in France it's hard to go east-west in France. It's dead easy to go up and down. It's hard to go. So you could any of your airports, you could broaden your catchment area if you brought this technology. If it works, you could brought this technology in. What are you learning, and then how do you take that out to your other locations and see whether it's going to work in a different market, maybe with a different type of social environment around it, or anything,
So I think first thing we learn is on a technical basis of integration of AAM or eVTOL into an airport. Concretely, what does it mean? We made some compromise for 2024, of course. We have to build the sites on time. So that's time that is running out and time that is critical factors here. Of course, money as well. So we learn technically on what we would need if we build or if we retrofit a terminal in CDG and we want it to be very connected to the city with a vertiport directly connected to the regular passenger flows. We know now how to do so, and we are starting construction now of the 5 sites for the Olympics. So we have pretty good knowledge of what does it mean, technically speaking, to build a vertiport with current regulation. So of course it will evolve with regulation, but technically speaking, that has been a huge understanding and a huge process we went through. Then on the method itself, I think it was also a good, I talked about it earlier, it was a very also good process of working with our environment and in an ecosystem way. For regular aircraft, conventional aircraft, we're not used to engage very, very, very early with on a new model of aircraft, to engage very, very early with the regulator as well, the French Civil Aviation, that has been very supportive on the project, and EASA as well. And that's something that changed with this project, because very early in the process we said, look, we are going to do this by 2024. How can you support, and how can we co-construct the regulation and the future regulation together? And I think that could be a learning for a group like us on engaging with regulators, not waiting to the last moment to submit a project, and the regulator will say, there is this parameter you haven't looked at, or this will not work, and then you have to redo the whole process. So I think in terms of method, as well, by engaging with the public around the platform, that's our daily work as an airport operator, to work with local communities. But for this specific project, as I was explaining on Pontoise, it has been really about convincing people on a new form of aviation, and in the times we are living of aviation bashing, for instance, it has been challenging, and I think that's a learning we are going to apply on the development of hydrogen or hybrid aircraft, whether it is for regional purpose or longer distances. And then I would say also it's a learning internally within the group for the teams. I believe it has been a very transversal project led by the innovation team that I represent, but it has been also a way to embark the different entities of ADP working, big corporation, sometimes you have silos, and that's for sure. But on this specific project, everyone put its building blocks and work on it We had acoustic expert coming to Pontoise. We had the technical guys looking at the vertiport specification. We had the commercial team working now on the commercialization plan, and that's something we are going to apply to I think to other airports in the group.
So Daryl, I think the key characteristic of advanced air mobility is it brings aviation closer to the people. At the moment, we drive miles to get to the airport to get on an airplane. We are talking about bringing aviation close. That means it's not just the airports we need to talk to, it's not just the airlines we need to talk to. We're talking about the municipalities, the communities that you're going to have to, they often own the airport, or they certainly own the infrastructure around the airport. They've got to understand. I mean, so when you do the work that you're doing, how important is it that we are going to engage early and get those who don't normally touch aviation to understand what we're doing?
So in the US, I'm an advisor to an organization called CAMI, the Community Air Mobility Initiative, and their sole objective is to actually work with local authorities to help them understand the advantages that advanced air mobility can bring to them. So they're actively going out, talking to town planners and city planners to try and get them involved with the process so that they know what they're doing. Gary Cutts from Future Flight Challenge in the UK has been doing something similar, trying to bring together industry. So we're bringing together groups like the British Aviation Group, of which I'm a board member. We're engaging the AOA, RABA, so the Regional Airport Business Groups, and other associations with local authorities. But I think that this is where it's interesting that you get local authorities like Coventry, who through the Future Flight Challenge and urban airports developed their vertiport concept in there. And they got lots of feedback in terms of actually built something. This is what we need to do. So it's these demonstration type projects that is really going to get us that acceptance and that wider understanding of what advanced air mobility is. And we really need to do that. But I think for the larger airports, I don't think the urban air mobility, the eVTOL side, it's actually going to move the dial in terms of passenger numbers. It's a great thing to do. And I'm going to go and channel a bit of Sun Tzu here. You've got to lose to win if you're a big airport. You've got to be willing to lose some of that regional traffic that you're getting out to smaller airfields in the distributed aviation model, which we're talking about in our white paper. So in allowing some of that regional traffic to spread, in losing that traffic, you win because you backfill those slots with long-haul international passengers. So this is how an airport grows without laying down a square meter of tarmac or growing the building. And so this is where advanced air mobility is going to change the economics of investment in airport infrastructure. And of course, there's a lot of hesitation at airports to say, well, we need to lose some of that regional traffic. Well, you're not losing, you're gaining more than you're actually losing. And if you're smart, you invest in that small airport where you know the traffic's going to go, and you win. So you've got to lose to win. And I think there's this bit that the industry's just starting to figure this out, and I've been banging on for it for a while. Go read Distributed Aviation, the answer's in there. But this is what the economics of electric aviation are going to do.
Yeah, that's completely true, and so we have Pontoise Airfield as a sandbox. We have 10 of them in the Paris region, so it's already a network of aeronautical playground that are available and that
like
can
the
be
playground. That's a brilliant. Yeah, that's the sandbox is fantastic.
Yeah, and those places that there could be better way to connect the communities that are around, to better connect the region, the city of Paris and the other part of the region. And I believe it will be also economically viable for a group like us. Today, it's places where you have more general aviation than real business for IDP. So it's historical aerospace infrastructure, but the business model could be on regional aviation and regional urban air mobility on those airfields.
So we're wrapping up here, but for those of you that are here today or have been visiting, sitting with us through the last 3 days, the excitement among the industry is palpable at the moment. There's a lot of very enthusiastic people here just imagine what the excitement's going to be like next year when you're actually doing the flying. You're probably going to be biting your nails and going grey, but I think it's going to draw a lot of attention, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. So.
And looking forward to seeing you all in Paris next year for the Olympics.
There you guys, yes. We've got our invitation.
I'll be there.
So thank you, Alban. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, audience.
Cheers.